So everyone knows what I'm going to talk about, and you know my introduction now. So let's get into the subject. What I would like to do is go for maybe 40-45 minutes, max 50 minutes, to set a stage for you to ask lots of questions. What I will speak, you will find some things you already know, not a surprise. Okay, I knew that about Mahabharat, I knew this about Ramayan, Rigveda or whatnot. There will be some things that may startle you, saying, I don't believe this. Okay, that's the kind of reaction you may have. And it could be about any aspect of it. And then the third things that you say, okay, this is fascinating. Okay, I never heard about this. And the idea is to therefore create a stage for a wonderful question answer session. We use the word, vade jayate tattva bodho. Through this discussion, we learn about it. Everyone knows the term podcast these days, right? Okay, and we think it's a recent invention. It's not. If you look at all our ancient Bharatiya narratives, I use the word ancient Indian text, ancient Indian narratives to include everything that we have. Everyone has been to the Pradeep there, the whole open museum, right? And you have that wonderful tree of, the Shrutis and Smritis and all that. So think of it, everything is ancient Indian narratives. I use the term because I speak around the world and it's easy for them to understand. I can group it together. Practically everything, with a very few exceptions, like say Darshana Shastra, Darshana Shastra will not always a dialogue between the two because they are sutras, for example. But most of the other stuff is basically a dialogue. It's a podcast between at least two individuals, right? That's what I mean by that. And there is a reason for it, and we'll talk about that too. So let's get into it. If I have to summarize about, say, 30 years of my research work, at least on the antiquity or specifically the timing aspect of our civilization, it would look like this. I think everything is very obvious. So today is where we are, 21st century. Zero, anyone knows what the zero stands for, possibly? That is the calendar, whether we like it or not, the current English calendar that we use, the Gregorian calendar, okay? And before that, a Julian calendar, which is connected with what? The birth of Jesus, okay? And do you know a little small humor about that? They say, okay, so that's zero, and says Jesus was born in 4 AD. Okay, if it started with his birth, then that should be zero, right? But that was assumed to be zero, okay? But it's 4 AD, and we just don't know. There are a lot of controversy. That's not a subject today. But that's a zero. If I would ask anybody's birth year right now, and you would spurt out some number, whether you realize that or not, but you are saying that in a Gregorian or Julian calendar year. On your passport or your Aadhaar card, very likely that's the number. So keep that in mind. The reason I mention this is because many people will ask, why do we not use a Indian calendar? And maybe you will ask that question too, and I will answer in a broader way. But the reason is, in order for us to talk about the specific number of years before present, we need a reference point. And our system is a lunisolar calendar, but to give that specific reference in a solar year, we have to rely on a calendar that every one of us understand. And that happens to be the current Julian calendar, Gregorian calendar. So that's zero. Now when we go back, minus 5K refers to 5000 BCE. One thing, like there are a few messages I want you to take, but one message is, instead of using AD, Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. Whose Lord? So, right? So, Anno Domini, we don't have to use it. Now, the Jewish academics, Jewish scholars in America did a great job. They said, that's not our Lord. Jesus is not our Lord. So, they said, we are not going to call it AD. They call it CE, Common Era. We have to still make use of it, but Common Era. And anything before that is before Common Era. Now, it was used BC as in before Christ. Okay, we are going to use before Common Era. The reason I use that is you know what that BC stands for. So, before 0, if you go minus 5K, it means 5000 BCE. Everyone understands K stands for 1000. 5000 BC, 10,000 BC, 15,000 BC. So just a quick summary, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Mahabharat happened, and immediately the question would be, how did you figure this out? That's what we will talk about. 5000, the Mahabharat Yuddha, the specific war, happened 5561 BCE. Okay? So how many years ago? If you want to find this out, how will you figure it out? 5561 plus 2024, right? 7585 years ago. Just for simplicity, we'll say more than 7,000 years ago for our discussion. Okay, it will also help you. If you go to Ramayana, the Ram Ravan Yuddha, the year that you see, 12,209 BC, is the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. Okay, so you can find out approximately 12,209 plus 2,000, so for about 14,000 years ago. Okay, and just to get the mnemonics right, and there is a reason, and I'll come and talk about that also. Rigveda, please understand, the one who made the slide for me, he didn't put that greater than. I'm not saying Rigveda was composed or Rigveda is from 22,000 BC. What I'm saying is definitely Rigveda is older than 22,000 BC or 21,000 BC, if that helps. Doesn't matter, approximately that. You know why? Because just a simple way to remember our Indian antiquity, the two itihasa, Mahabharata and Ramayan. If somebody says, when did Mahabharat happen? Right now you can take it on the Shraddha. Okay, but the Shabda Pramanya has to turn into a Praman, Pratyaksha Pramanya. You just don't take it on the leap of faith, everything. Especially the things that you can verify. What happens after death? That we don't know. Na Samparaya Pratibhati Balam, right? So then we depend on the authorities because only they can tell us. In their different ways, the empirical lab science doesn't work to figure out what happens after death. But there are certain things that we can verify. That's why Adi Shankaracharya says, even if a Shruti tells us that the fire is hot, fire is cold, we will not accept it. Everyone knows that, right? Because we can verify with our testability that fire is not cold. Something like this. We can check this, and I'm going to show you. And then Rigveda, of course, more than 21,000. So in a simple way to remember, somebody asked, when did Mahabharat war happen? More than 7,000 years ago. Ramayan more than 14,000 years ago. And Rigveda definitely more than 21,000 years ago. Have you done your multiplication tables? 7, 14, 21, 28, right? So just an easy way to remember. Now some of you might be thinking at this point, but hold on. I heard that Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga, and then there are these thousands and thousands of years. So how come you are telling 14,000? We will get that in question and answer. But right now, you have to take that thought away. And this happens in my lecture. So somebody says, but he's stuck there a million years ago. Because Kali Yuga is a 432,000. Everyone has heard that. Dwapar is twice that, 864,000. Okay, so Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga. So at least there is a Dwapar in between, that 864,000. So it has to be at least a million years old. Okay, in the question answer session, we will address that, but I want you to forget it. I'm telling you upfront that is wrong. Okay, and all our granthas support that. But if you get stuck, you are not going to listen and pay attention to anything I'm going to say for the next 30 minutes. Therefore, I want you to take on a leap of faith and put it aside. Okay, all the Valmiki Ramayana evidence takes us to 12,209 and no other date. And Valmiki Ramayana is our reference for Ramayana. There are many Ramayana, but everyone pays gratitude to Valmiki Ramayana. As a history, itihasa is concerned, it's Valmiki Ramayana. Same thing with the Mahabharat. As far as the itihasa aspect is concerned, it is Mahabharat. It's Vyasa's Mahabharat. This is a quick question I want to go through. On only this topic, I even talk for 1 hour, but I'm going to talk about this in 2 minutes. Okay? Why only India has a itihasa? It's about 2018 December, maybe 6 months after I met Swamiji. I was in Velianad, May 2018. And in December, I went to Oxford to present a paper. I presented a couple of papers, but that's not even relevant what I presented the paper about. After this wonderful conference, like usually 20-minute sessions, we only get 20 minutes, like a TED talk, if you have heard about it. And then afterwards, 90 minutes. So I speak only for 20 minutes, and everyone, all these professors from around the world, right from Beijing to Berkeley, they just grill me for 90 minutes. That's how it's wonderful. And I want you to grill me after I'm done, okay? So one professor from Chicago, very angry, came like darting at me literally that 90 minutes. It's an open session, not sitting. Like there are other things, food, whatever, and people can mingle and ask the question. He says, you as in like India, he was saying, you don't have history. And depending on the person's nature, you decide how to handle that. Sama, Dama, Dandaved. I said, let me humor him, entertain him. I said, actually, you are right. And he was shocked because he was expecting me to fight with him. And say, you are right, we don't have a history. He says, yeah, really? But you are talking there 12,000 BC. And I wasn't talking Ramayana. I was talking Surya Siddhanta. And Sushruta more than 8,000 years ago. That was my paper there. And he's saying Sushruta is 600 BC. That's what Wikipedia says. How many of you are familiar with Wikipedia before? Okay. Wikipedia is for most of the general purposes, it's good. But when it comes to the Indian, Bharatiya Adhyatma or Bharatiya civilization, the Wikipedia becomes Wikipedia. Okay, that's what happens. You have to be very cautious what you read and how you present it. So after that professor went and the conference was also over, I got to thinking myself, because there I responded to him, says, we don't have a history, but we have a itihasa. And he says, what is that now? He's an American professor, right? So everyone knows the meaning of itihasa. Itihasa, this is how it happened. Okay, but there is an element of embellishment also. People say, but there is an embellishment. Yeah, so what's the problem with that? Any biographies has embellishments. Doesn't matter whose biography. Okay, because it's called narrative fallacy. The narrator has to cover the points and put it in such a way that it becomes interesting to read. Okay, so I'm going to give you a definition of a itihasa. You would have heard about it, many different definitions, but a common one and a good one. It says, Dharmartha Kama Mokshanam Upadesham Samanvitam Purva Vruttam Kathayuktam Itihasam Prachakshate. Okay, it's a guidebook. It's an encyclopedic case study book. Okay, to do what? To guide us into understanding, learning, managing our four purushartha, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Okay, and how is it prepared? Purva vruttam kathayuktam. A historical incident is taken and it is told us in a katha form. Therefore, it is also entertaining, educational, but also entertaining. And that is called itihasa. And now we are left with what? There may be many more itihasa, we don't know, but at least what we are left with is Ramayan and Mahabharat. Okay, so those are the two itihasa. Why do we have them? But I said not just only India has itihasa, but only India has a itihasa. If you see the emphasis on the only. Actually, I wanted to put that in a capital, but you get the feeling for it. Why only India has a itihasa? And this is the reason. And I spent 1 hour explaining this because there is that much to explain, but I'm going to cover in 1 minute for 3 reasons. If you want to write something about something happening today, let's say for posterity, for people who will read it, say 5,000, 10,000 years from now, okay, how the 19th Vedanta class took place and who were participants and so on, okay, they have to find some mnemonics, like the 100 names of the sons of Dhritarashtra, for example. You have to, how do you remember these things, right? So there has to be some good way of remembering it. What was one of the things done? Vedanga. I'm sure you have talked about the Vedanga, like the Chanda. That is important for a reason. That's why it's easy to remember, easy to memorize. And sometimes we forget something, we know how much I have forgotten. Say, Urdhva Moolam Adashakham Ashwatham. And if I forget, I know how many matras I have to go. So that helps me. Oh, okay, I'm looking for a 5-letter word possibly, yeah? That helps, okay? So that is the benefit of a chanda, like form, fit and function. Any people coming here from engineering background? Okay, thank you. Glad you are there. Otherwise, I could bluff anything I want, right? If I'm the only engineer in the room. So form, fit, function, you have heard about this, and for others too, right? Any part that we make. This is our Vedangas, like the Shabda, the Shiksha, and then the Vyakaran, and then the Chanda. These are form, fit and function. Okay, there is a certain meaningful word that we use, okay, or Nirukta also, I mean all the Vedangas. So Sanskrit is the language and that's why we have a itihasa, one of the reasons. Why is that? No other language will work? No, there are history is written in Greece. For example, Herodotus wrote history of the world, of his world, the area around the Mediterranean. He didn't know anything about India. His world. Or Megasthenes. Have you heard the name Megasthenes? Okay, he wrote something Indica, whatever he knew about the Indica. And we'll talk about both Megasthenes and Herodotus if we get time. But what is beautiful about Sanskrit? Sanskrit is a language which has such a flexible, such a capable, able language that you can write anything you want. Such a variety of words. Like if you just type the word water in a Sanskrit English dictionary, how many words for water you think you will get? Hundreds and hundreds. And then finally you stop and say, okay, I think I know there is enough. For a stree or a woman, just type woman. I mean, Sanskrit is in love with woman. If you just type, like I have done it, and it's like went to 200, 300, 400 words, and then I said, okay, I give up. There are so many words, the different aspects of it. Right from a Mahila, but also Abala. In a certain physical sense, maybe Abala, but Mahila in the sense of Dhruti and Kshama and all the characteristics of Bhagavad Gita. So there are these different names that are given. Very, very capable language. Something else. If you read Shakespeare's English, and if you are not trained properly, you won't understand that English today. You are understanding my English right now? You won't understand more very likely Shakespearean English. And that was not that long ago, only 200 years ago. In Marathi, anyone with a Marathi background? No? Okay, I can bluff about Marathi now. So Jnaneshwar you might have heard. Jnaneshwara wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita about 800, 900 years ago. I studied Jnaneshwari and I need a translation. I speak Marathi, I understand Marathi. Jnaneshwari is written in Marathi. Only 800 years ago, I need a translation. Because many languages has a drift. The words change. But the beauty of Sanskrit, it has some drift, but it's a very low to no drift. That's the language we want. We have it. No one else in the world has it. And this is not just to pat our back. This is a fact. In fact, if you remove Panini, I'm sure you are studying grammar here and Vyakaran too. If you remove Panini, the world doesn't know how to make a connection between different languages. Forget the languages of India, languages of Europe. They cannot make a connection, grammatical connection between languages of Europe if you remove Panini. Everyone has used laptop? So you know the Intel inside now. Here also it says Intel. If the Intel is not there, we don't know what Intel is, but every laptop has Intel inside. If the Intel is not there, laptop doesn't work. Panini is like that. The grammar, Indian Sanskrit Vyakaran is like that. The languages cannot be connected. That's the beauty of that Sanskrit it brings. Now, if you are writing something as a historical thing, historical, itihasic thing, you need a timestamp. How do you do a timestamp? Because now we are using 2024. But there is also a Vikram Samvat, there is a Shalivan Samvat, Yudhishthir Samvat, even like Islam, like a Hijra, whatever the different Samvat. Over time it gets confusing. Okay, over time it gets confusing. The greatness of Indian sages is they said, let's not use anything confusing. Let's make a very unique timestamp. And do you know how they did it? That is one of the 6 Vedangas again, Jyotish. They selected such a references that it is a very unique timestamp. And that's why you're going to see 5561 and 12,209. Assuming that evidence is, they have included the evidence into the text. Okay, and they did. The third one, okay, so you have a astronomy, the timestamp, you have the language to write this. Now, how do we make sure that over generation it comes to us without deviation or without much deviation? That is because I also speak in the West a lot. I use the word wisdom tradition. Can you translate that in English? In the Indian context? That is the Guru Shishya Parampara. Through the Guru Shishya Parampara, for every aspect of our literature, whether it's a Darshana, whether it is a Vedas, Brahmanas, whichever Grantha, there is a Guru Shishya Parampara, like everyone hanging on to it. That's how it comes to us. Okay, and if you see those words, place, time and context, Desha, Kala, Patra. Okay, so between that two, we know the place, because Sanskrit can simply say it happened at Kurukshetra. But even an astronomy observation, if you know the observation made, and depending on the quality of observation, it can tell you from which place the observation was made. So it can bring it together. The timestamp is there, and a wisdom tradition can also talk through many other things like a genealogy and so on and so forth. I will take you to Herodotus, and even what Herodotus wrote 2500 years ago validates even the Ramayana time. Surprise, surprise. Okay. And so Guru Shishya Parampara, that's how we have it. So let's get into it. So we have two itihasa texts, Mahabharat and Ramayan. Just now, here it's not an issue, everyone knows how big is Mahabharat. But just to give a perspective, I tell in the Western audience, because they know Greek epics, Iliad and Odyssey. Have you heard these names? So I tell them, how big is Mahabharat? Combine Iliad and Odyssey, the size, multiply by 8, and you get some idea how big is Mahabharat. And they say, oh my God. But that's how it is. Actually, if you start reading Mahabharat and you understand the content, the amount of information, you actually are surprised that how come 100,000 shlok, like 1 lakh shlok can contain that much information. So initially it feels like it's so huge, and it is. But if you consider the amount of nitty-gritty information that is there, actually I am surprised that how can you do this in 100,000 shloka? Almost feels next to impossible. Okay. Anyways, that's not a subject today. And Ramayan is about 1/4, 24,000 verses. Okay. So much smaller. Surprise, surprise. I'll tell you the number of shlok. Geography of Mahabharat. Now this may be a surprise to some of you. You say, well, Mahabharat, guys, this happened in India. Why am I showing all the way to Turkey on that side and Indonesia on the other? If you read Mahabharata descriptions, you will find that the people came from all this area to fight in the Mahabharata war. For example, a king named Bhagadatta, he fought from the side of Kauravas, and he was very old. That's the description when he fought. In fact, he was so old that his eyebrows used to fall off, and therefore he has to tie them while fighting. Mahabharata goes into that kind of nitty-gritty details. Okay, what is a Dhwaj sign of every warrior? Okay, what kind of dress they were wearing? What kind of Shastra and Astra they had? Okay, now somewhere when I was talking to Mahuaji yesterday, she said many people are curious about Shastra and Astra. Yeah, you said that? Well, that's out of syllabus today, okay? Maybe just one liner, we will not go into Shastra and Astra. But this is the geographical area for Mahabharat. For Ramayan, it's kind of like this. So easy to remember, like a sort of x-axis slightly tilted, that's the Mahabharat. The y-axis is Ramayan. Okay, that's a geographical area. Now, let's talk about the method, epistemology and ontology. Have you heard the word epistemology and ontology? You have? Okay, so it's easy for me. But if you have not, I was going to say they are there to impress you. Okay, epistemology in a simple language is to say, what are the limits of our knowledge? We talked about what happens after death. You know, the story of Nachiketa or Na Samparaya Pratibhati Balam. We don't know, you know. Okay, it's not easy. Not that it's impossible, it's not easy. Similarly, the epistemology is about what are the limits of our knowledge. At some point, we have to understand some things we will not know and not get stuck on that, like ultimate regression. Somebody will ask like, okay, so what was the height of Bhishma? And the answer is, I don't know. It's not given in Mahabharata. But even the more important question is, why do you want to know? Okay, like in the commentary to Bhagavad Gita, I mean Shankaracharya's commentary, Vachaspati Mishra, when he writes his commentary, everyone knows Bhamati. Okay, he says, Samshaya is very good. Not the Samshaya of a Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says what? Adnyasya ashraddha dhanasya samshayatma vinashyati. It will lead to complete destruction if you have a Samshaya. But that Samshaya is talking a Samshaya of a mind. But if you go to Darshan Shastra, everywhere there is a Samshaya. Prameya, Pramana, Prameya, Prayojana, Samshaya, Drishtanta, Siddhanta, Avayava, Tarka, Nirnaya, Vada. Yeah, remember? Jalpa, Vitanda, Hitva, Bhasa, Chala, Jati, Nigraha, Sthana. These 16 things you should know in a Nyaya Darshana. Again, I just said it to impress you. But the word Samshaya is very important. So that Samshaya is very welcome. Do you know what is the difference? What Krishna is referring to, Samshayatma Vinashyati, is the Samshaya of a mind. And I'll give you an example of that, you know, in the due course of time, or maybe question answer. This Samshaya of a Darshan Shastra is a Samshaya of a Buddhi. Samshaya of a mind says, oh, I don't think this is possible. No, I don't think that's possible. Which means now the guy can be lazy. He or she has to do nothing. The other person, the Samshaya of a Buddhi says, this looks impossible, But somebody has claimed it, somebody has written it, like say Pushpak Viman. We'll talk about Pushpak Viman for sure. No Shastra Astra, Pushpak Viman we can talk in the question answer. But somebody says, to the best of my knowledge, all the aeroplanes that I am aware, they occurred only 120 years ago. But Ramayan, Nilesh, now you're saying 14,000 years ago, there is a Pushpak Viman in it. Actually, there are more Vimana. Indrajit is also basically maneuvering fighter planes. If you read the descriptions, Indrajit is using fighter planes like our MiG-21 and Jaguar and stuff like that. Suddenly he's seen here and only the sound can be heard but he cannot be seen. Those are the descriptions. Okay? And Mahabharata also has many Viman. Shalva had a Saubha. That's how he attacked Krishna's Dwarka and so on. So, and they're talking very casually. They're not talking this as some amazing surprise about it. So now somebody says, these descriptions are there. There is a specific description. Let me go and find out, read Valmiki Ramayana, find out more from Valmiki Ramayana. What else is there about Pushpak Viman? And is there a way I can somehow compare them with the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner? Now that is a samshaya of a buddhi. You see, there is a work involved if you want to do that. In Anugita, Krishna says, Tapo Balam Hi Sadhanam. Everything that we have accomplished is through research. Reading and research. Okay. So epistemology is that. Ontology is what? How do you decide whether something is true or not? Okay. Somebody says something. How do we know it is true? Which way we go about verifying? That's ontology. Just a complex word makes it easy. So the method, I call it the doubt clearing machine. It starts with a problem on the left side. I have not written it here. And the outside, if you are lucky, if you use this triangulation, on the outside you are successful with the solution to that problem. On a humorous note, you know, if you have heard before joining this program, if you have heard Rahul Gandhi talk about ek side se alu dalo, dusre side se sona nikalo, right? So yeah, actually if you use this machine, might actually happen. Okay, alu can turn into sona. On humorous side, it's an extremely powerful method that is the method of the last 500 years of Western science. They are so proud of it. Very proud of it. The way it is described, Sir Karl Popper, the best philosopher of science in the West, philosopher of science, he says it's a triangulation of explanation, that is that evidence, prediction and testing. It's a triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory at the top, in the context of background knowledge. They are very proud of it. Hey, we figured this out 500 years ago with Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo and those people. Thousands and thousands of years ago, Bhagwan Patanjali is saying Pratyaksha Anumana Agamah Pramanani. Samadhipad number 7, right? Patanjali Yoga Sutra. In fact, I'm going to, just because I said it, I'm going to tell the next 2 sutra. These 3 sutra cover everything that is the Western science says about science and some more. Anyone remembers the number next? Number 8. Pratyaksha Anumana Agamah Pramanani. Pratyaksha, that is that testing there, objective testing, okay, using the evidence at the top. Anumana, that is the prediction or inference, okay. Agama is at the bottom. Remember what I said? Triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, that is our prameya. In the context of background knowledge, that is a agama. Something that we take it for granted when doing something, okay. That is this. That's Patanjali says. What is the next one? Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtham. Number 8, Samadhipad. If you don't follow number 7, you viparyayo, the opposite of that if you follow. Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtham. If you don't follow this, it will lead you to the false knowledge. And what is the next? Shabda jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpa. You are making a verbal claim, Shabda jnan. Shabda jnananupati vastu shunya, but there is no evidence to back it up. It leads to a confusion, it leads to a delusion. That's it. There is no more to science in this, and we are going to follow this. Of course, if you go to Nyaya Darshana, Bhagwan Gautam, what does he say? Same thing, Pratyaksha Anumana, he adds one more thing, Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana Shabda Pramanani. Because Upaman is how we understand. If you have to compare Pushpak Viman with a modern jets, basically you are using modern jets, what you know. You are using a Upaman, Drushtanta, okay, and trying to understand what Pushpak could have been. That is a Drushtanta. Laukika Parikshakanam Yasmin arthe buddhi samyam sa drishtanta. Drishtanta is what? You use that thing, a story, a whatever it is, metaphor, some tool, some visual object. You use that to explain something so that the experts and ordinary people all are on the same page. Laukika, ordinary people, parikshakanam, experts. Laukika parikshakanam, yasmin arthe, for that particular knowledge, yasmin arthe buddhi samyam sa drishtanta. They are brought on the same level of understanding. How beautiful the definitions are given. Okay, so this is what we are going to use. So you need to be careful to hold me and saying, Nilesh, did you present every time this triangle? If you have time, we'll talk about Krishna in Bhagavad Puran demands even more. He says triangulation is not enough. He says quadrangulation is a must. Uddhav Gita. Okay, Shruti, Pratyaksham, Aitiyam. See if you can see the word. Shruti, Pratyaksham, Aitiyam. The evidence is coming from Mahabharata Ramayana in this case. Shruti, Pratyaksham, Aitiyam. Anumanam chatushtayam. Pramaneshu anavasthanad vikalpat sa virajate. Unless you get these four quadrangulated, your knowledge is not stable. He is even demanding more. Okay, but we'll not go into that. So let's get into some exciting stuff. Mahabharata. I'm going to do a quick true or false type of question to you. Okay, and you thought there was no exam today. Okay. I'm going to make a statement and ask you if this is true or false. Okay, let's see what you say. Mahatma Gandhi, everyone has heard the name. Okay, Lokmanya Tilak and Swatantraveer Savarkar, everyone is familiar. Right now year is 2024. What if I say these three people came together, Lokmanya Tilak, Mahatma Gandhi, Savarkar came together in Pune in 1924. And for 3-4 hours, they discussed how to get freedom from British. Is this statement true or false? False? Okay. What about you guys? Rest of other than one individual. True or false? She's so confident. You feel confident, eh? Yeah. Why? Please help us. Yeah. Are you sure? Anyone joining her? She said false. This is a false statement. Okay, I will help you. That's a correct answer. Now, anyone wants to join her? Ma'am, why? Timeline is different. So, tell us something that will quickly explain everyone. Yeah, in 1920, I'll repeat what she says. Yeah.
Only Gandhiji could be there.
No, but you are on the right track. Okay, so Savarkar, Gandhiji and Tilak. Now, if people don't have that, then this thing doesn't work. You know, it has to be supposed to be an aha moment, everyone, you know, which is this. Lokmanya Tilak passed away in 1920. So, the clinching, I'm talking there about the crucial evidence and a clinching evidence. Okay, so that evidence is the fact that Lokmanya Tilak passed away in 1920 is sufficient reason to say that this statement is false. So, thank you, ma'am, for answering that question. Gandhiji was there, Savarkar was also there, Lokmanya Tilak was not there. Everyone follows what I'm saying? So, this is the kind of evidence. So, then, because if I ask this, I'll tell you the difference between ordinary people and academics. When I ask this in universities, they keep on going, well, I don't think that's possible. So, they agree with her answer, but the reasoning is different. Because I don't think Mahatma Gandhi and Savarkar would agree on something. They forget the 1920. You understand what I'm saying? Just remember this. That's how academics fight. Fight with me also, you know, on this. That's not the main point. Maybe they agree, maybe they don't agree. The point is 1920, Tilak is not there. That's the decisive evidence. Are you following what I'm saying? That's the kind of evidence I'm going to show from Mahabharata. So we are going into Mahabharata. This started for me in 1994 when I had just finished my master's in Canada, chemical engineering that somebody referred to. And I had like about 2 weeks before I start my job, you know. So I went into library just looking for different interesting things. I said, let me go to the Indian section of library. And so I reached there and the entire Bhandarkar Oriental Research Critical Edition of Mahabharata. Have you seen in the libraries? The big, you know, black cover books. So I said, let me see. The only thing I knew was a Bhagavad Gita. So I said, let me see where Bhagavad Gita comes in Mahabharata. Everyone knows Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata. So I knew at least approximately where to go. So Bhishma Parva binder I pulled, this big thick, if you see, critical edition, and I don't know where it is. Now I know, 23rd chapter, Adhyay 23. But that time I did not. So I started reading. I never reached Bhagavad Gita. Because chapter 1, 2, 3, this is very exciting, interesting discussion. Those who get excited by the war. And the discussion is happening between Bhagwan Vyasadeva and Dhritarashtra. And in that description, Vyasadeva is giving many descriptions of that time, the astronomy descriptions. 30, 40 in this chapter number 2, chapter number 3. And I'm saying, what is going on here? I didn't know that. In 1994, I did not know that. And there was one specific reference, it is that what I'm referring to, that caught my attention. The reason that caught my attention is because I knew something about it. Like Arundhati was, everyone knows Saptarshi in the sky, 7 stars. So 4 stars and the tail is 3 stars. The middle star in the tail is Vasishta. And next to that there is a very small star. That's Arundhati. In modern astronomy, Alcor and Mizar. So what is so exciting about this? Just like that Tilak, Gandhiji and Savarkar type of thing. There Vyasadeva is saying, Ya Chaisha Vistuta Rajas Trailokye Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. That great Arundhati, famous in the 3 worlds, has placed her husband Vasishta behind her, on her back. Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishta. We are talking of stars, not the couple, husband-wife. They were, based on that the names were given to the stars long time ago. Now why is this a big deal? It is a big deal like the Tilak passing away in 1920. Because if you go tonight and look at the Arundhati Vasishta, you will find Vasishta is ahead, Arundhati is behind. In 1994, it was the same situation. The stars don't change position that fast. So I said, well, okay, this is interesting. So if I can find out the timing when Arundhati was ahead of Vasishta, I will know the timing of Mahabharat. Everyone understands the logic of it. So being an engineer, there are few engineers too. We feel so great about ourselves. I said, in 2 weeks, I should be able to solve this. Actually, I did solve it, but the timing was wrong. Instead of 2 weeks, it took me 15 years to solve the mystery behind this one shlok. Ya Chaisha Visuta Rajas Trailokye Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prashtuta Kruta. Bhishma Parva, Adhyay 2, verse number 31. Okay? From 1994 to 2009. But something interesting happened. When I did figure this out in 2009, it told me there was a certain time when Arundhati could be seen walking ahead of Vasishta, as Vyasadeva has told Dhritarashtra. And that timing is after 11,091 BCE and before 4508 BCE. Now the previous one is not that important because no one was claiming Mahabharat happening more than 13,000 years ago. But everybody knows, like right now, yesterday I visited the open museum, and if you see the big, one of the big slide there about Guruji, right? What does it say? Let me see how many of you have remembered what you read. What does it say about the Mahabharat dating? No? As a proof, I took the photo. It says 3000 BC based on the river Saraswati evidence. So Guruji, one thing we need to correct there is change it to 5561 BCE. And by the way, this river Saraswati evidence will never take you to 3000 BC. If we have a time, we'll talk about that. Okay? And therefore, I noticed the river Saraswati on the right side. We also need to make some corrections. The river Saraswati Center in Ujjain, like Padma Shri Haribhav Wakankar, if you have heard the name. Okay? So that museum, they are in the process of changing it. Okay? Because I'll talk about when Saraswati comes. Like right now, if you see here, it will say Saraswati is what? From 6000 BC to about 2000 BC. Guess what? Saraswati did exist during that time, but that was like a remnant of Saraswati. The great grand Saraswati of Rigveda is nowhere there in the last 20,000 years. That is what the evidence shows us. That's how I said the Rigveda is definitely more than 21,000 years. And there is a shlok there written. Okay? Naditame, Ambitame, Devitame, Saraswati. That shlok from Rigveda, the grandest of the grand river, simply did not exist any time in the last 20,000 years. Saraswati existed, but not the grand Saraswati. But we'll get to that. So, everyone understand? Just like that Tilak, Savarkar, Gandhi, I said, hey, if you want Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishta, as Vyasadeva is saying at the time of Mahabharat war, that is only possible between these 2 years. Everyone follows? Yeah. Then this is the kind of samshay we need. Okay. Now this is the answer. I already gave it at the beginning, but I'll tell you how I came to that. But somebody about 10 years after me, Siddhartha Chabra, okay, he's in America, of Indian background. He says, let me see if what Nilesh is saying is true. So healthy samshay is good. Okay, even Vachaspati Mishra says the samshay should be sa-prayojan and sandigdha. Okay, meaning you should do a background study and then question it, and you should know why are we doing this. I mean, why I was working for 15 years to figure out if Arundhati went ahead of Vasishta. Because what is the prayojan? If I can figure it out, I know the timing of Mahabharat. You follow? Okay. So he used the latest data, meaning 10-year younger latest data from 2019. He said, let me see if what Nilesh is saying is true in a totally different way. He used the jet propulsion data, and he wanted to actually prove me wrong. Okay, that's how he was trying to do, which is great, you know. So actually he came up with an answer which is even better than mine. He said, actually it's not the 6,000 years, but it's about 5,000 years. Only during that time, Arundhati would be seen walking ahead of Vasishta with the more refined data. Everyone follows? Okay. So we are still good. That 5561 answer is between that. So everyone follows? There is no contradiction. Okay. So now the question is, how did I figure this out? Well, if I have to look at this, I have like still 5,000 years to search through. And that's not easy, guys. Okay. So some additional information was also useful. If you look at the Bhishma Nirvana evidence from Mahabharata, about 100 different descriptions, different astronomy, chronology descriptions, they give us, I will not spend time how I figured this out. I wrote a whole book on this, the Bhishma Nirvana. It tells us that the time based on the Bhishma Nirvana evidence that the Mahabharata can happen is between these 2 dates. And if we get time in a question answer, I'll give you a feel for it, like how this Bhishma Nirvana, extremely powerful evidence. I mean, something that all of you are able to relate to. Okay, let me just take a minute and explain this. Then some additional fine tuning, again Bhishma Nirvana plus first day of the war, and again Mahabharat war happening in Margashirsha. Everyone agrees Mahabharat Yuddha happened in Margashirsha? Yes? What is the evidence of that? Evidence that almost everyone should know here. Yes, very good. Gita Jayanti is in the Margashirsha. We'll just go with that enough for now, okay? Now, we celebrate Gita Jayanti on a Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi. Okay? Now, Mahabharat Yuddha began on a Kartik Amavasya. And that is also in, you know, Chinmaya Foundation is with that, you know, alignment with that, Kartik Amavasya. So, why do we celebrate on a Margashirsha Shukla Ekadashi? The answer is there in Mahabharata. I'm going to skip that answer, but full answer is there in the Mahabharata. But let's go on. So Margashirsha, it happened. Everyone agrees? Yuddha began on 18 days. So it happened everything in Margashirsha. We know that Bhishma, he fell down in the battle on the 10th day of the war, and then he was waiting. Remember? He was waiting on a Sharashaya for the day of winter solstice, Uttarayan. And do you know how long he was waiting? Mahabharata says he was waiting for a minimum of 95 days. 95 days. Now just pay attention for 1 minute. In astronomy 101, our lunar month, Saumya Masa or Chandra Mas, like Margashirsha is a Chandra Mas, okay? The full moon is near Nakshatra Mruga. It shifts with respect to season by 1 month every 2000 years. That is that precession of equinoxes, Sampata Chalan Ayanagati. It precesses, it changes by 1 month every 2000 years. Right now, Margashirsha comes right at the time of winter solstice, 21 December, and our Gita Jayanti is somewhere in December. It has to shift through 4 months, and 1 month shift takes 2000 years. So, 4 shift of 4 months, remember 95 days plus 10 days, you know where 95 I get. Bhishma is lying on the bed of arrows for 95 plus days, and 10 days before the war began, because he fell down on 10th day. So, 105, about 4 months. So, there is a shift of Margashirsha for 4 months, and shift of 1 month takes 2000 years. So, 4 times 2000 is 8000 years. That is what these numbers are coming from. So, I just give you a simple answer. Mathematically, you can get down to a specific year. So, now still question is, I get a 1500 years time frame in between 6722 to 5125. How do I get 5561 BCE? Now this one is very easy to understand for everyone, right? How many? Yeah, easy. We can skip and go to the next one. Everyone knows this, right? No? How many of you have played with a jigsaw puzzle or a crossword puzzle? In the newspaper, magazines, and some, right? When we start there, we look at the clues, the vertical and horizontal. Initially, we are not sure, am I going to solve this today? Before breakfast or whatever. But once you start solving, what happens? If you get 2-3 clues right, then suddenly you start getting the answer. Same thing with a jigsaw puzzle, you know, all the states of India or whatever you might have played with, all the countries in the world. Something like this happened because I had some clues from Arundhati Vasishta where to look for. From Bhishma Nirvana, I had like a 1500 years to look for. Okay. But the beauty is these are like 50 plus descriptions about the planets at the time of the Mahabharat war. Just to give you a flavor and to impress you, I would say. I will say, how are these descriptions coming? Prajapatyam cha nakshatra graha tikshna mahadyuti shaneshchara pidayati pidayan pranikodikam. The nakshatra of Prajapati, Rohini, is been afflicted by Saturn. But that's not the only thing about Saturn. Remember, the jigsaw puzzle or the crossword puzzle, you have to match vertical. That same letter should also match the horizontal. That same Saturn is described, Bhagam nakshatra akramya surya putrena pidayate. That Surya Putra means Saturn is near Nakshatra Bhaga. And now it also says, Samvatsara Sthainancho Graho Prajvalito Ubhau Vishakhayo Samipasto Bruhaspati Shaneshcharo. That Saturn along with Jupiter is in the vicinity of Nakshatra Vishakha, there for a year, shining brightly. And on, like Saturn has 6 references, Jupiter has 4. That Jupiter is also doing something on the 17th day of the war. Jupiter is also doing something near Nakshatra Shravan. So you understand like how the problem is, like it has to fit the length, it has to fit the specific words, it has to also match the horizontal, vertical. That's the solving the jigsaw puzzle. That is this jigsaw puzzle. 50 different descriptions. I'm not going to go through it. It's there in my book, in my videos. Okay. Now I know you're not allowed to watch video, which is a good thing. Okay. So maybe you're allowed to read a book. So sometime you can do that. But this basically gives us that 1 year 5561 BC, no other year. And in fact, you don't have to use all 50. Now science demands that you should use all the evidence. You cannot be cherry picking. You have to use all the evidence. But actually, the Mars, the planet Mars, look at that where you can see the Mars. I don't have a pointer, but everyone can read Mars here. Look through the circles. Mars has a Vakri motion. Mars also has a retrograde motion. And if you see the arrows from there, near Anuradha, retrograde, but also Vakri near Anuradha, also near Maga. Maga Swangarako Vakra, Shravanecha Brahaspati. Or Krutva Changarako. Angarak, everyone knows Angarak means Mars. Krutva Changarako Vakra Jesthaya Madhusudana. Anuradha Prarthayate Maitram Samshayamanniva. Nunam mad bhayam krishna kuruna samupastitam visheshenai varshneya chitra pediyate graha. That same Mars is doing some pida to Chitra. These are the kind of descriptions they come together, 5561 BC, no other year. It is that jam-packed. No matter which way you try to hit the fort, destroy it, it won't happen. Okay, now Ramayana we can go fast. Very similar. In case of Ramayana, Mahabharat has 300 astronomy descriptions. I showed you maybe 150. 50 for planetary, about 100 for Bhishma Nirvana and 1 for Arundhati. So there are 150 descriptions that I did not even show you on the slide. Forget about talking about them. They all will lead you to 5561. In case of Ramayana, there are 600 astronomy descriptions. Now, a Grantha is like 1/4 the size of Mahabharat. Interestingly, more astronomy descriptions. But we have to also explain more. But out of those 600, I'm going to take only 6. You can read those, there are 6 there. Okay, Jyotisha, the cardinal points we talk about, the summer solstice, Uttarayan Bindu, Dakshinayan Bindu, Vasanta Sampat, Sharada Sampat, those are those corner points, the 4 shloks that I have written. I'm going to quickly walk you through, and then the 2 pole stars. How many of you have seen the pole star in the sky? At night, not in Mumbai. Mumbai just doesn't show much. No? How many of you have seen it? Actually at night, the pole star. Few, okay? So what do? If you are in Mumbai, again humorously speaking, but also factually, if you are in Mumbai, you face the north direction. What is the latitude of Mumbai? Anyone? 19 degree north. So we need to know latitude to figure out the pole star. So if it's a 19 degree latitude north, it's not that difficult. Astronomy is not difficult. You go like this, from the horizon you go 19 degrees up in the sky. Does this remind you of something? Hi Hitler. Okay. So you do this, and at that 19 degree in the north direction, that star, if you keep on watching through the night, do your dhyana, that star doesn't move. That is your pole star. Okay, Dhruve tad gati jnanam. That is Vibhutipad in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Okay, Bhuvana jnanam surye sanyama chandre tara vihod jnanam dhruve tad gati jnanam. If you do a dhyana dharana sanyam on a dhruva, you get the knowledge of the motion. That is that precession motion we are talking here. That slow shift of Margashirsha every month, like by 1 month, 2000 years. That's how long you have to focus like a dhruva. Then you know the motion. So here quickly, four things. Right now the dhruva that we have, we call it Polaris in English, and in our Indian astronomy we call it Dhruva Matsya, if you have heard the name. But that's not the pole star of the Ramayana times. Mahabharata times there is no bright pole star. Entire 100,000 verses Mahabharata, there is not even a single description of a pole star. There is a description of a pole, because pole is always there. Wherever Earth's axis is pointing, that is the pole. But there is no pole star, because Mahabharata 5561 BC, there is no good pole star there, any star there that is where the Earth's axis is pointing. And there is no description in 1 lakh verses. But in Ramayan you come, beautifully the pole star of Ramayana times is described 3 times. I am going to give you one. When Lakshman and Ram and Sugriva living from Kishkinda, Hampi, Bellary towards Lanka, Lakshman is the astronomer of Ramayana. He says, Brahma Rashir Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshya Archishmanta Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. That bright pole star, Brahma Rashi. If you go to Indian astronomy, Brahma Rashi means Abhijit, in a modern astronomy, Vega. And if you know astronomy 101, we don't need to do mathematical calculation. If Brahma Rashi is a pole star, you have to go back to 12,000 BC. Or 12,000 plus 26,000 years, because the cycle of a 26,000 years, the precession cycle, the Sampata Chalan is at 26,000 years. So Brahma Rashi will be pole star once every 26,000 years. You follow? It was there in 12,000 BC. Something else interesting happens. How many of you have heard the name Agastya? Now the star of Agastya is in the south. Okay, it's called Canopus. Something very interesting. When Brahma Rashi becomes a pole star in the north, by the way, how many of you are comfortable that the pole star changes? Because just like that million years of Ramayana, if you get stuck, pole star never changes, Dhruva, then you are lost. Pole star actually changes. It changes very slowly, so we say, well, practically it doesn't change. In a lifetime it doesn't change. Even in 1,000 years it doesn't change. But if you go more than 2,000 years, it changes. Okay? Because wherever the earth is pointing, whichever is a bright star where the earth is pointing, that's a pole star. So that's a Brahma Rashi. Interestingly, when Brahma Rashi becomes a pole star in the north, in the south, Agastya, Canopus becomes a pole star. And that reference is there in the Valmiki Ramayana. The Sugriva giving an instruction to the southern party, do you know what it says? If you want to see Agastya, right now you can see Agastya star from New Delhi or Kurukshetra. But at the time of Ramayana, it says if you want to see Agastya, go south all the way until the land ends. And there was even more land that time, because water was down 140 meters. Then you climb the Mount Mahendra, which is at the border of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. Still Mount Mahendra exists there. When you climb, then only you can see Canopus. Do you know why? Because Canopus has become a south pole star. That description is there. And if you go through all of this, you will find this. Just I'll give you a quick reference. For example, month of Ashwin, when we celebrate Vijayadashmi, Dashara, whatever you call it, when does it occur right now? In September, October, which is what season is that? End of Sharat season. Okay? Do you know what is happening in the Ramayana times? When the southern party is looking for Sita in every direction, Sugriva has given a limit of how much time? Anyone remembers? 1 month. 1 month. Actually, they go forever. They start at the end of Sharad, then the entire Hemant Rutu is gone, entire Shishir Rutu is gone, and even the spring season comes. And Angad, he's part of that party with Hanuman, and he says, I give up. I am not going back to Kishkinda. We have not found Mother Sita yet. And if I go to Kishkinda, Sugriva will kill me. I am just going to sit here, do the Gandhi's fast, okay, and just leave my body here. I'm not going back. And in that frustration, he's saying that verse at the top here, if you see. He says, I see the signs of Vasanta Rutu. We left in the Sharad. We have gone through 2 Rutus and the 3rd Rutu is also passing away. Vayam Ashvayuje Masi, Ashvayuja, the Ashwin Mas, even that is passing away. Spring is passing away. Vayam Ashvayuje Masi, Kala Sankhya Vyavastita, Prastita Sopichatita, Kimata Karyamuttaram. How are we going to accomplish our task? Right now, Ashwin comes in the end of Sharada Rutu. Remember? Lunar month shifting with respect to season, 1 month takes 2000 years. If you go exactly opposite of what it is today, just a simple way is what? 3 seasons, 6 months, 6 times 2, 1000, about 12,000 years ago. You follow? That's how you have to go back. And you will just find everything same. Just last one, I will take one here at the bottom. Again, remember, who is the astronomer of Ramayana? Lakshman. They are standing in Panchavati, Nasik, and the Hemanta season comes. And Lakshman is describing to Ram and Sita the beautiful 24-hour cycle of Hemanta. He says, water is cold. It's morning, I don't feel like going to the water, don't feel like touching the water. Those are the beautiful descriptions. Nashik used to get snow during that time because the weather was air conditioned, colder, cooler, 14,000 years ago. There are descriptions of that. But he says, when the sun is setting in the Hemanta Rutu, which is what, November, December in our times, he says, Nivrutta Akasha Shayana Pushyanita Himaruna. The sun of Hemanta Rutu is setting on a Pushya Nakshatra. Now this year you can do the test. November, December, after sunset, note down the nakshatra. It will be Mula, Uttarashada, Purvashada. Again, we have to go through each nakshatra. The whole cycle of 26,000 years is completed, right? 26,000 years, 27 nakshatra, which is what? About 1,000 years per nakshatra. Everyone follows? So, from Uttarashada, which is today, you have to go back or forward, whichever we want to look at it, 14 nakshatras, those many nakshatras to Pushya. It will take you to that time. So, this gave me a time of about 4,000-5,000 years, and quickly to speed forward. Then there was again, Lakshman is our astronomer. Again, when they are living, see, this is Lakshman is saying it. We are living for killing Nairuttas, you know. Have you heard the word Nairuttas referring to the Rakshasa? See how geographically information is embedded. Desha, Kala, Patra. Not just the Kala, even the Desha. Nairuttas, from India as a center, say Ujjain, from there, which is a Nairutya Disha, southwest. Humorously, I will say Keralite. No. Right? But Kerala also, of course. But towards Africa, Maldives, right? So those are the Nairuttas. Even Ravana's Lanka, I don't want to open another can of worms, is not Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka became Sri Lanka 1972. If you look at the description, Sri Lanka may be under Ravana's control, well, Maharashtra was under Ravana's control. This is where Shurpanaka was there, and Khara, Dushan, Trishira, their outpost is there. But if you, now I will not open that subject, where is Ravana's Lanka? You know, when you graduate 2 years from now, you can watch my YouTube talk, Ravana's Lanka, okay, where it is. But Nairutyas, that's how physically they are referred to. No, we don't say people from the north, people from the south. In the old times, you know, in Mumbai, everyone from south we used to call Madrasi. That's a wrong description, but that's what is called, right? So that's how they are saying, Nairutyam, Nairutanam cha nakshatram abhipidhyate. The Mula nakshatra, Devata is a Nirutta, okay? And they're saying that is been afflicted by a comet. Have you heard of child labor? I put my 6-year-old daughter to do this work. Arya, I put her in front of it. I said, okay, here is the software. I have pegged down Mula nakshatra. Keep on watching. Anytime a comet comes near Mula nakshatra, stop the computer, call daddy. So actually she found it. Now, of course, I verified it. So anyone can do the research. 6-year-old can also do the research if you guide them. Okay. So that's actually nailed down the 12,209 BCE. Okay. Quickly, I might have taken time here. So what happens? So 5561 BC is the year of Mahabharat war. 12,209 is the year of Ram Ravan Yuddha. Are we done? You said, okay, thank you very much for sharing this. All my questions have been answered. I'm happy and fulfilled. Is that what you'll say? Or actually did it raise many more questions in your mind? Hold on. Tell me about that Yuga thing. What happened there? What kind of Shastra were there? And are you telling me that the jumbo jet existed 14,000 years ago? How did they write this? Was script writing? Did they have a language? Now, nobody will ask here. But if you go to academia, they are going to say Sanskrit didn't exist. Sanskrit came 2,000 years ago. Yeah, do you hear that? Sanskrit came 2,200 years ago. And how do you answer? Our people say, oh yeah, I don't know what to answer to that. No, you should ask what is your evidence. And they say the oldest inscription that is found is 2,200 years old. And you say, so? Just because the oldest evidence found is 2,200, are you telling me it didn't exist before? Nyaya Darshana, I mean, I don't know if your program includes Nyaya Darshana in this, but Nyaya Darshana is worth studying. When Shankaracharya is fighting with Mandana Mishra, he is talking of this, but the argumentation, how to logically discuss, is through Nyaya Darshana. Okay? What does Nyaya Darshana says? 4.2.29, Pramana Tasyartha Pratipatte. If you want to say something, you must show evidence. You cannot discuss without evidence. The next one is more important to me, especially fighting with the academics, 4.2.30, it says Pramana Anupapatti Upapatti Bhyam. These are short formulas, okay? So the expansion is required. But it says evidence that doesn't exist. So non-existence of evidence, absence of evidence is not useful to prove something, is not useful to disprove something. You follow? So when they say, oh, the oldest inscription only exists for 2,000 years, we say so. So is that your evidence to say that the Sanskrit did not exist 14,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago? They say, oh, so can you prove? I say, no, I don't have to prove it. Valmiki Ramayana evidence is taking me to 14,000 years ago. You follow. Okay? If I get time in question answer, we may not have a time, but I will tell you the head of Nehru Planetarium was with me 2 days ago. And I will tell you the exact discussion and a very interesting discussion that happened. Okay? And we'll do that. So now what happens, if you have a problem, my problem was when did Mahabharat happen, when did Ramayan happen? To solve that, I proposed a theory, Prameya. What was the tentative theory? That TT stands for tentative theory. I said all the astronomy descriptions of Mahabharat or Ramayan are descriptions of those times. See how simple theory is? That's how science theories are too. You know what Ptolemy said? Earth is at the center. That is his theory. Do you know what Copernicus said? Sun is at the center. Don't think science is complicated. Sun is at the center. What did Kepler said? He said, Copernicus, you are right. Sun is at the center, but their orbits are not circular, they are elliptical. What did Newton say? Newton said, that's all good, but why are they going in a circle? They said, two inertial bodies, anytime you have two inertial bodies, they have an attraction between them. And I will tell you something very interesting. You must remember this. When somebody asks you, puts corners you, the onus is on not you to prove evidence for everything. Newton, they said, Newton, you are great, but I have one problem with your theory. You are saying anytime everyone understands inertia, like some mass, anytime there are two objects with inertia, there is an attractive force. But that time they are saying, but where is the rope that connects these two inertial bodies, Earth and a sun and a moon and Earth and a moon? You understand? Because that's how we understand. If you connect the ball to the rope and you just do this, then you say, it's doing because it's not going away because I'm holding it with a rope. It's attracted. Do you know what Newton said? He says, where is that rope that connects these all inertial bodies that you're referring to? Because that is his theory. There is attractive force. Do you know what he said? It's a very famous statement in science. He said in Latin, he says, hypothesis non fingo. Do you know what that means? Hypothesis non fingo. I don't pretend to know the answer. I don't know the answer, but my theory is right. Why? Remember the triangle. It is predicting the position of the planet using his formula every single time. My theory is right. I don't necessarily have to have answers to every question you ask. And I'll tell you the Nehru Planetarium director's question if we get time, okay? So now what happens, you have a theory, you did the error elimination, that's solving the jigsaw puzzle, crossword puzzle, that's how I got the answer. It's not the end of it. You hope that it is the end of it and I stop talking, I know. But it's not the end of it. What happens? It raises, if your theory is revolutionary, if you solve a difficult problem, it raises many more problems of higher complexity. I'm going to quickly rush you through this. You can have 30 different problems. I'm going to take two. So he says, okay, this is all Nilesh in the sky. I don't understand much of astronomy. Can you show me something on the ground, for heaven's sake? You are saying it happened at Kurukshetra and Krishna was in Dwarka and so on and so forth. You says Krishna's Dwarka, I know, reading Mahabharat, was destroyed by rising sea levels 36 years after the Mahabharat war. Everyone has heard that? Is there any archaeology evidence? At least water, something happening. What about 18 Aukshohini male warriors? Everyone knows, right? Exclusive male warriors. Yeah? You feel happy now. No fighting required, at least then. Lakshmibai had to fight. Died in 18 days. Okay, is there any evidence of that happening in genetics? Okay, let's quickly look through that. I'm going to go a bit fast so that hopefully I leave some time for question answer. This is, there are 30 different pieces of evidence. I'm showing you one. This is on the Arabian Sea, entire Arabian Sea. That's where Krishna's Dwarka is, right? Here, the Gujarat bottom there. And this graph, x-axis is time and y-axis is the increase in the sea level. And do you see that line, the penciled line going through it, the curve? Now, the red dotted line is I have drawn at 5525 BCE. Remember the triangle again. First time with the Arundhati Vasishta is my evidence. I took 15 years. I'm a slow learner. I took 15 years to test it, objective testing. It led me to the inference. Mahabharat happened between 11,091 and 4500. Follow? In this case, same triangle, but I know the answer here. Krishna's Dwarka prediction is it went underwater 5525 BCE. You follow? 5561 plus 36, 5525. Now I'm looking for evidence backward. And I'm not looking for evidence in the Mahabharata text. You follow? Before I started with the Mahabharata text, now I'm not looking because 5525 came from Mahabharata. 36 years plus 5561. I'm looking for evidence on the ground. And this is my evidence from a ground. This is Zarin's paper 25 years ago, written 25 years ago. Was not useful for Mahabharata until 2011 because I had not figured out 5561. What does it show? If you can follow this curve here. Look here. From here, this going up here. Do you know how much is that? If you look on the y-axis, 23 meters. But right in the middle of 6th millennium, 5525 BCE, there was a sudden sea level rise, not tsunami, because tsunami water goes back. This is a sudden sea level rise that never went back of 15 meters, 45 feet. And that perfectly matches with description in Mahabharata. That Krishna's Dwarka, the Arjun says, literally in front of his eyes, it just vanished under the water. Okay? And if I had time, I would have taken you to Dholavira and Lothal, but I will not do that. But that also explains here why Dholavira was a port and Lothal was a port, and why it was not a port after 2000 BC. You see that water going up, see here? Actually, today's water level is here, this horizontal line. But when it went up, it actually overshoot by 3 meters. That's why Dholavira was a port, Lothal was a port in Gujarat. And in Tamil Nadu, Mayuram, how many of you know the place called Mayuram in Kaveri Delta? Mayuram was a port. Right now it is 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer inside. But Mayuram was a port from 5525 BC for the next 1500 years. That is a work of Professor Ramaswamy, done in 2020. If I was giving this lecture in 2018, I did not have that evidence. That's how things are changing very fast. Okay, so we have to change with times. Now, I just gave you one, but actually wherever I have put the dots, that's a very solid, no nonsense, no ifs, no buts evidence for a sudden sea level rise in 5525 BC around the world. I mean, when I give a talk just on a Dwarka, 1 hour is not sufficient, but I'm telling you in like 13 seconds here, okay? So let's go to the next one. This one piece of evidence is that 7.6K, that is 5600 BC. This is from Caribbean. So I showed you Krishna's Dwarka in Arabian. This is from Caribbean. I'll skip that for this discussion. Quickly, genetics. 4 million people are gone, right? 4 million people, 18 Aukshohini, if you read Mahabharata description, that amounts to 4 million, 40 lakhs people. Okay, 11 on one side, 7 on one side. Practically 99% were gone in 18 days. That's what Mahabharata tells us. Men, exclusive men are gone. Okay. How many of you understand genetics at a very basic level? XY chromosomes. Okay. So XX, if it's a female, it's a XX. If it's a male, XY. Okay. So suddenly the variety in the Y chromosomes is gone with the 4 million people. The question is there any effect of that on the population post Mahabharat? That was the question I asked myself and started looking for genetic evidence. This is in 2011. And then, if you ask for it, then the evidence comes. Upadrashta, Anumanta, Cha, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwaram, they start giving you. Okay? Krishna starts helping you. That evidence came 2015, Monica Carmin's paper. Quickly, I'll go short. I'll make it 30 seconds. X-axis is the time. Y-axis is the imbalance between X chromosomes and Y chromosomes. Now, before we go to that peak there, look at rest of the curve for 150,000 years. What is the average, you will say, for 150,000 to, let's say, until we go to 20,000 years there. We are coming from past to our times. What is the average? Just a quick eyeballing. Engineers in the crowd. What is the average for that blue line, green line? I'm not looking for exact number. What is the y-axis here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. What is the average? Not 5, because it hasn't crossed that one peak, but otherwise it's below 4. About 3, 4 somewhere. You see that? It's important. That's the noise. Like I have put this to amplify my signal. Otherwise you'll get the background noise. Noise signal to noise ratio. Now that's a signal. Remember, it's a 3 or 4 somewhere there. And I get a signal, a very big, huge peak here. Okay, 16. So the variety of X chromosomes is whatever it is. But if you compare that with the male chromosomes in that year, it is 16:1. Everyone follows? 60, absolute scale. Now, if you use the signal to noise ratio, see that's how you could have estimated the noise level. What is that number? So, if you take 3 or 4, 16 divided by 3 or 4, say 3.5. Answer is 5. 5:1, 16 divided by 3 is about 5. Yes? Okay. That's what Monica Carmin's paper says. But if that's not clear, I'm going to just make it clear a little bit like this. A couple walks in right now. If you are just looking at it, you say a couple walked in. But if you are a genetic scientist, do you know what you say? 3 X's and 1 Y came in. That's what you say, right? That is that noise. Remember, now you understand? Anytime a typical couple, 3:X, that is the noise. That is our noise. Now, in Monica Carmin's paper, it says that there was, I'm going to go back for a second, there was a time in the past, just like an earthquake, physical earthquake, there was a genetic earthquake. They don't know why, because they don't read Mahabharat. There was a genetic earthquake and there was such a huge imbalance of X chromosomes to Y chromosomes. Absolute scale 16:1, relative scale 5:1. You follow what I'm saying? Now 2 more questions we need to ask. You need to ask. What are those 2 questions? So I'm telling you, like a earthquake, how bad was it? Richter scale. I told you 16:1 or 5:1. 2 more questions you need to ask. The same questions you ask when you hear about the earthquake. What are the other 2 questions you ask besides Richter scale? You don't ask questions? First you say, where did it happen? And when did it happen? Well, when did it happen? The answer is the peak, you come it down, it comes down to 7,500 years ago. Does that ring a bell? Mahabharat. One more question you need to ask. Where did it happen? Where was the epicenter of the earthquake? Now this is a genetic earthquake. Genetic quake. Do you know what the Monica Carmin paper says? I don't have a graph for that. India. India. Epicenter was India, happened 7,500 years ago, and a sudden loss of diversity in the male chromosome. And we know the answer. Then 2 guys from Stanford wrote a paper on this paper of Monica Carmin recently by 2018. Something very interesting. They tried to explore all possible reasons why this could have happened. They proposed different 3 hypothesis, prameya. And do you know what they say? Finally, we reach this conclusion. Now listen carefully. They don't know about Mahabharata either. They say, based on our research, it appears that this happened because they said, is it a disease, maybe a male exclusive disease? And they said, no, that's not possible. And they explain why not. They say, based on our analysis, it appears that this happened very likely, okay, due to a war, a fratricidal war between 2 cousin factions of a family. You can see that paper, Martin. I'm going to meet him when I go 5 days from now. In 15 days, I'm going to meet him. I hope I meet him at Stanford. Fratricidal factions between two cousin factions. So, same family. That's how it can be only explained. Okay, very interesting. Quickly, I want to go 2 more. Now, Ramayana. This is easy. So Ramayana, we may ask, okay, anything in Ramayana from the ground, not from astronomy, Nilesh, okay. We don't understand astronomy, but tell us. One is, Ramayana has a descriptions of elephant-like creatures with a 4 tusk. How many of you have been to the zoo? And you have seen an elephant? Everyone has seen elephant with a 4 tusk, right? No. 2 you have seen, okay, or no tusk, but not 4 tusk, okay. But Ramayana describes 4 tusks. Actually, 3 times the descriptions come. 1 time in a dream and other 2 times in Lanka. Very clear. When Hanuman is going around looking for Sita, he sees Pushpak Viman, Ravana's palace, and guarded by soldiers, but also by elephant-like creatures with 2, 3, and 4 tusks. Okay, we'll look at that. And some archaeology evidence. Let's look at the paleontology. The Gompo theory. Today we don't have elephants with 4 tusks, but if you go back more than 9000 BCE, actually there were many varieties of elephant-like creatures, mammoth, they come under mammoth, and majority of them were destroyed by 9000 BC. They did have 4 tusks. Now remember, what is the timing of Ramayana? 12,000 BC. So it's a corroborative evidence. Just because there are 4 elephants with a 4 tusks doesn't mean Ramayana happened there. I want you to understand. We decided Ramayana happening 12,209 from the internal evidence of Valmiki Ramayana. But now we have a external support saying, 4 tusk elephants, that's possible. Okay. Now if they were not possible, what do we do? Again, Ramayana date is wrong? No, it's not wrong. We just don't have evidence of it. You follow? We just happen to have evidence. Quickly, Sugriva, how far Sugriva knew? Just an idea. This is amazing. Now I showed Ramayana is just like more or less India, today's India. But as far as the knowledge of the world, Sugriva knew all the way from South America, Andes. He did not know beyond Andes. He did not know Argentina and Brazil. But he knew Ecuador, he knew Peru, he knew Chile. He stopped there. He said that is the end of east direction. Everyone is familiar with the day line, international day line that goes through this. Now, I don't know when international day line was figured out by Western guys, I don't know. But India figured out at least 14,000 years ago. Sugriva is saying that is the end of east direction. Okay. So, I'm just going to show you one, but Sugriva knew all the way from South America to the Alps. Sugriva had vacation in Switzerland. Okay. And in the north, he knew from the Arctic Sea, Uttaram Payasam Nidhi. That's how he describes the Arctic Sea. All the way to Antarctica. He calls it Yamapuri. Europeans discovered Antarctica in the 18th century, 1730. Okay. But there is actually evidence. Piri Reis in 15th century, a Turkish admiral, he created, after Columbus, he created a composite map of the world. And he says he used the Arab maps, but he also used the maps of the Hind. You know what that Hind is, right? India. And based on that, he created the maps. And that maps from 15th century shows Antarctica. Actually, America was found out by Columbus. That was included. But Antarctica was still not found. And he shows it. And he says he used the maps of Hind. Okay. I'm just going to show you one for the eastern direction. Now, there is evidence. Is there evidence of Indians going to South America? Well, there is evidence in Bhagavad Puran. You go to the 5th canto, I think I forgot the chapter, maybe 23rd. Ananta, Mount Ananta. It says Mount Ananta is in the Patal. Okay, that is Andes, by the way. Everyone is suspicious. I'm going to show you the proof of that. Remember, Mount Ananta. And this is a genetic evidence 2015 papers from Harvard. Now, everyone hears Harvard, yes, that must be true. Actually, Harvard is filled with crooks, fakers. Okay, I go there all the time. I make a point to meet with them, spend 3 hours with them, try to expose them. I ask them to do it on camera, uncut, unedited. They don't agree. Okay, but this is a Harvard paper, 2015 Reich. Actually, just is showing the Indian gene going all the way to South America. So this is just in case somebody says, well, come on, what are you talking? How did Sugriva go? Well, there is evidence of that. You have found archaeology evidence that many mainstream archaeologists don't agree, but it is there. There is nothing to agree or disagree. human presence in South America going to 30,000 BC, 50,000 BC and so on. Now this is the interesting one. On the west coast of Peru, there is, near Paracas, south of Lima, there is this structure that's engraved. I don't know if you can see that like a trishul-like structure and a vertical pole, and at the bottom there is a rectangle. Everyone can see that? Okay. Now, when the Spaniards came 500 years ago, nobody knew who created this. They asked them, locals, Ayamara and Quechua Indians, said, did you do it? They said, no. If you have seen Simpson before, I didn't do it. Bart says that, no, I didn't do it. They didn't do it. But who did it? Nobody knows. They said the structure was always there. Ramayana has a description of it. So Sugriva is explaining you going in the east direction, how far you go all the way to the Andes. He calls it Ananta. He also calls it Udaya Parvata, Sriman Udaya Parvata. That is the eastern end. In describing this structure, this is representing that Ananta. It's the insignia of Ananta. That's how it is described. How is it described? Trishira, now you are learning Sanskrit, most of you even know Sanskrit. Look at this and look at that description. Trishira Kanchana Ketus Talas Tasya Mahatmana Sthapita Parvatasyagre Virajati Savedikaha. The rectangular structure at the bottom. You see? Trishira Kanchana, golden, Ketu, a pole, Talas Tasya, a very big one, 800 feet tall. But the next verse, I don't have it here, but it goes about telling who created this, why it was created, when it was created. Purvasya dishi nirmanam, krutam tat tri dasheshware. Indra created this. Indra is the Swami of east direction. In the Kruta Yuga, before Ramayana. Okay? Purvasya dishi nirmanam, to establish that war day line. Purvasya dishi nirmanam. This is where the east direction begins. Okay, and it says basically it is like beautifully shining here. So that's what it is. I just quickly showed supportive evidence from two each. For Mahabharat, I showed oceanography and genetics. For Ramayana, I showed archaeology and paleontology. If we had a time, like a 6 days or something, maybe in a Valianad, we can do that sometime. Actually, we did in 2018, but that was a slightly different format. Look at all other areas, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, seismology, hydrology, climatology, go on and on. There is a evidence that supports this. Now, in case you thought 21,000 years and we are done, not really. I mean, if you are interested. So, do you know where the 21,000 is? Let me see. I can see this here. Okay. So, here. Here. This is like somewhere about whatever that range is. Okay, so this is Mahabharat 7,000 years ago. This is Ramayan 14,000 years ago. But actually, the evidence exists in our Grantha going back to 75,000 years to the Toba explosion. And there is a evidence on the ground also. If you go to Jwalapuram in Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh, okay, there is an ash layer. The Toba, you see the explosion there? The Jwalamukhi coming out here, that picture, that happened 72,000 BC. Entire India, if you dig, if you go to that level of 72,000, you see a thick ash layer. Even in the Arabian Sea, you see it. Okay? And interesting is, stone tools, not other tools, but you see the stones below that ash layer and you see the stone tools above the ash layer. What does that tell you? Well, there were people before and there also people survived after that. And I'll take you give you as a homework to look for that description of ash and fire falling from the sky into our itihasa. It is there. But I will stop here. And I might have gone over my time, but if you have a time, we'll take just a few questions. If you are at a time right now, we can stop. Okay, let's take some questions. Okay. Are you hungry? Okay, please use a speaker phone. That way it gets captured there also. Since you have it, why don't you ask a question? You know, the first question is the hard one. By the way, I did a corporate training. I do corporate training. I also do academic training. And undergrad courses, I always tell this because nobody is asking the question, I'm saying this. If you want to go get ahead in life, any life, Adhyatma doesn't matter, there is no difference. After any lecture, if there is a question answer period, always try to be among the first three to ask the question. Look, that has an effect right now, you know. So yeah, now we know the first one. Who is the second and who is the third? Always try to be among, see, there you go. This works. There is another one. If nobody asks the question, then I say, the only reason there will be no question, only two reasons. One is nobody understood what I said, or I did not say anything new. You know, those are the only reasons, right? Otherwise, you should have questions. Yeah, please.
Hari Om Nileshji. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So it threw a lot of light upon our ancient knowledge systems, including the Puranas, and especially the astronomical evidence. I won't pretend I understood everything, but at least it gave us a taste of how all the Puranas and itihasas communicate so much, including like you mentioned, geographical, ecological, across so many branches of knowledge has been communicated in a poetic sense, including some historical information as well. And I always, for me, I had some trouble understanding how much of it was fact and how much of it was fiction, how much of it was poetic embellishment, and how much of it was through, evidence-based. So that is one part of it. But something that I want some help to understand is how does it, for a sadhaka in a spiritual journey, how much, like we previously discussed, at the beginning we discussed about looking through the eyes of Shraddha. So maybe to some extent, personally, I feel I have a certain amount of Shraddha. I don't need so much evidence in order to accept these, but I understand the academic background of reason for that as well. So, for example, in Atma Bodha, we had a verse, Tirtva Moharnavam Hatva Dveshadya. So, Rama is defined as someone who crosses the ocean of delusion, and he finally reunites with Shanti, represented by Sita. So, which has to me a degree of universal applicability. A person, regardless of their country of origin or race or background or ethnicity or caste or creed or whatever, can relate to this statement and for a sadhaka and use it for their spiritual journey. And this is the value that I feel Ramayana or Mahabharata brings, Purana, itihasas, etc. So, to some extent, I feel when we limit this to a particular geographical area and the cultural ownership, something like copyright to a particular place, aren't we building more walls than bridges? Like, I can also probably take some inspiration from Western canon, from Iliad or Odyssey, for example, and I can identify with their characters, Achilles or Odysseus or whatever. I can take something good from them, and I feel, does this limit the universal applicability of? Could you please throw some light on that?
Okay, good,
thank you.
So if I have to, everyone heard what he said. If I have to summarize it, because these are the way it are presented, the way they are written, they are into specific geography. For example, if you go to Bhagavad Gita, Vibhuti Yoga, among the rivers I am Jahnavi, and Sthavarana Himalaya, among the stable things I am Himalaya. If I say even Himalaya, they don't understand. I have to say Himalaya. Then only they understand. So the geographically Jahnavi, why Jahnavi? Why not Mississippi? Why not Amazon? Why not Nile? Those are very relevant questions. So we are mentioning geography, we are mentioning a time also. So like time aspect, Desha Kala Patra. We are explaining the context, we are explaining geography, we are explaining the time. It is required if you want to truly understand it. Okay. What are itihasa? Dharmartha Kama Mokshanam Upadesham Samanvitam. These are the guidebooks. Okay. Case studies. In a business, anyone has done MBA? I think I met somebody yesterday, MBA. Business school. These days, even before, but it's all case studies, right? You do 40, 50, 60 case studies. If you are from a medical profession, you do a lot of case studies. If you are from legal law, you do case studies. Why is that? Case study is nothing but Purva Vruttam Katha Yuktam. Is it not? Actually based on a real instance, but modified to teach you. That's why itihasa doesn't give you all the answers. That's why we fight even today about was Bhishmacharya right? Was Krishna doing this act in a dharmic way when he did this and this? Were Kauravas right or Kauravas wrong when they killed the way they killed Abhimanyu? Today we discuss it. Do you know why we discuss it? Okay, the person is not interested interested in the story. If it is not the hearer story, one who is listening, if it is not your story, you are not interested in it. He will not listen. So you ask Euclid, Iliad and Euclid. If I would have today talked about Iliad and Euclid, is very useful. But you say, I don't know much about it. I have heard the names, that's it. If I start telling the story of whatever the characters, I'll come back. It will not come to that. So for that reason, you need the context, right? The story, so the beauty of the way the Itihas is written here, so is Iliad and Odyssey, but compared to Mahabharata, Ramayan, they are not even comparable, and we can talk about that. But I will come to the question in the sense you are asking, how is the effect to the others? The good story is from the Native Americans. Native Americans, they are also called Indians. You know why? Because Columbus was looking for India, and Vasco da Gama was also looking for India, right? Both. Now, you should also ask, I didn't show that because of time, you should ask why everyone was looking for India. You know why? Prosperity. Yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. It was for prosperity. It was extremely prosperous place. Not that long ago. It was very prosperous for a long time. But back to this. So there is a wonderful story in the native Indians. So when the Europeans went there and they said, okay, so that Dakota, North Dakota Indians, so they said that is the center of universe. That Dakota mountain is the center of universe. This is center of universe, maybe for you. What about us? And that native Indian head, he said, the center of the universe with circumference nowhere. You can make any place the center of a universe. You decide it. The beauty that Americans find it very beautiful. I was in Tamil Nadu border, Karnataka Tamil Nadu border. The place is called Urigam, if you know where that is, a tributary of Kaveri. And somebody took me there, all the different Shiva, not even Mandir. But that is true everywhere in India. I have seen in my childhood in Konkan, you take like a, say, pointed stone that is lying down like a horizontal, you turn it into a vertical one, you support it next to a wall or a tree, you put a sindoor on it, and it becomes a deity for us. Now, it may be seen as a trivial, but actually it's such a beautiful concept because deities is there everywhere. We are trying to personify it. So he said that. So people in the West, now to just the broader answer to your question, in the West that you may say, oh, well, will these people think it's a very sectarian Indian thing forced on us? Westerners don't think. If there are any people who are confused and deluded, they are found in India. That's my experience. I've been everywhere. So actually, some point to what you said, but the Jahnavi can be replaced with Mississippi and Himalaya can be replaced with Rockies. That's perfectly fine for understanding the point.
And fluidity of Sanskrit language also allows for multiple interpretations. The fluidity and flexibility of Sanskrit language also, for example, we discussed Arctic was called Payasa, which means milky, I understand something around, and Yamapuri for Antarctic. So we could have multiple geographical locations. Yes. Onto those.
Yes. And when I gave that talk and Swamiji has seen it, Peru, like describing Peru, like suddenly, I knew like about 10, 15 folks in Peru because of my business connection. Suddenly I have like 1,000 followers from Peru. They relate to it. There is a Inca festival. Do you know what it is? Inca festival is called Ramasinti. Or something like this. Now they changed the name to Inti Rayami. But I will say something from Herodotus. Let me quickly tell you. Herodotus, he wrote History of the World. Again, for evidence, you can go to Herodotus afterwards, once the 2-year course is done. Book 2 and chapter 124 through 142. Herodotus went to Egypt. Now Egypt, what are the names of the kings in Egypt? Anyone? Ramesses. Ramesses 1, Ramesses 2, Ramesses 3, Ramesses 4. Okay, if you go to Ayodhya, if you go to Thailand, Ram 1, Ram 2, Ram 3, Ram 4, Ram 11, it's happening in the both direction. Okay, so when Herodotus 2500 years ago goes to Egypt and the local tourist / priest we can call, he just takes him there to a place and he shows him 341 statues, 341, and he says, okay, he's the son of him, he's the son of him, he's the son of him, and all of that. And he says that 341 comes to 11,340 years. For simplicity, make it 11,500. You're okay with that? 11,340 same as 11,500. This happened 2,500 years ago. 11,500 plus 2,500, 14,000. The first king at the beginning of chapter number 124. Do you know what is the name of that king? And it says when this king was ruling, everything was perfect. But after that, when his son came on board, they are talking Egypt, of course, there. Then things went downhill and never recovered. The first king's name is Ramph-Sinitos. Ramph-Sinitos. Think of Ram Sita. And then the name Rameses. Now you say, Ramph-Sinitos, I don't think that's Ram Sita. Well, then you need to work on linguistics. Socrates of Greeks, when it comes to India, it becomes Sukrat. The names change. Our Chandragupta becomes Sandrocotus. Is there any similarity between the names? Not really. The names do change. If you have time, any other question? Yeah, please.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
My question is from Mahabharata. Before the battle, Sri Krishna promised that I will not use the weapon.
Yeah.
And I have heard the story about during the battle when Arjun denied to fight with Bhishma Pitama, he tried to use the Sudarsana Chakra. It's mentioned in Mahabharata?
Yes.
Thank you.
It is mentioned in Mahabharata actually twice. It's not Sudarshan Chakra. He uses the chariot wheel. He uses the chariot wheel. Okay, and goes attacking Bhishma.
Not Sudarsana Chakra.
Not Sudarshan Chakra.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But I thought you were going somewhere with that question, which is to say, why did he use it? If he said he's not going to use it. And again, that's how it is. This is a case study. We can have 10 different answers based on our intellect. It is to, just like we do Surya Namaskar, this is to give exercise to our mind and exercise to our intellect. You have the BMI. Everyone knows what BMI stands for. Body, mind, intellect. Sharira, Mana, Buddhi. These texts are there actually predominantly to give exercise to our mind and Buddhi. Like, what would I have done if I was there in that place? So, one of the interpretation Krishna is trying to show, if it's a adharma, it doesn't matter so much how I destroy it. And that's what he's telling every time in his actions. Okay? If you have time, yeah, please. Can we pass on the microphone there, speaker?
Hari Om, Nileshji.
Hari Om.
So my question is, we have evidence of Ramayan as per the research. So there were Vimans, there were Shastras. If there were Vimans, there must be some archaeological proofs. Like you have found the proofs for the Ramayan and Mahabharat to
Yes.
happen. Then what about these Vimanas and Shastras? And why the information is not available now? It's lost. Like if Guru Parampara is taking along the Ramayana, Mahabharata, the stories, the Katha, the Patra, everything is coming down, then why the technology is gone?
And why it is lost?
Yes.
Yeah, it is lost, right? You agree that it is lost.
We don't see. Pratyaksha.
Therefore, it is lost, right?
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. So, actually, in the question, she gave the answer. She says it was there because there is in the Grantha, but now it's lost. Just as an example, I'll give you. We are talking of a war happening at Kurukshetra 7,500 years ago. If you take the Lanka war, that Ravana's Lanka doesn't even exist right now. If you read Ramayan, if you read Mahabharat, you will see evidence of that. When Sahadev is going in the southern direction during the Ashwamedha Yajna, Rajasuya Yajna, his descriptions are very clear. Pandyas, the kingdom of Pandyas, and this, and Kaveri, and everything there. When it comes to Vibhishan, okay, now this is not necessarily Sahadev doing it. In the writing, there is something called hagiography. Now this is the academic word. Hagiography is when you are trying to describe. Suppose Nilesh, what did you do exactly 1 year before today? Now more likely I am not going to remember. I say 1 year ago, okay, I was in Atlanta. Oh, no, please tell us what did you do. I say, well, I got up in the morning, then I went there, I took a shower, and then I made a khichdi. Okay, I ate that, then I went back to my study. So I made it up based on my knowledge that is there. So there, you know what he does? He doesn't go. He should have gone, Sahadev gone. Do you know what he does? He calls Ghatotkach. And he says, please, on my behalf, you go. And you know what it says? Ghatotkach went there, talked to Vibhishana. Vibhishana gave her blessings and all was good, and Sahadev continued. In one shlok, they have wound up the whole thing. Because actually, when the Lanka is not there, there is sufficient evidence of that. My point is, so that's gone. But let me bring you back faster. 7,000, 14,000, the question is why we don't have evidence of Astra, Shastra. What else you want to see? Huh? Vimana, yeah, Vimana, okay. Vimana will come in a minute. But Astra and Shastra, Panipat, which is not far from Kurukshetra, Panipat had 3 wars. Everyone has heard about 3 wars of Panipat that happened in the last 800 years. Even less than that, 500 years. How many Shastra and Astra, just Shastra let's say, you have found from Panipat related to these 3 wars? Anyone knows? Now we might have found something, but The answer right now based on information is 0. Just the big wars, these were big wars by the way, Abdali versus Marathas and so on. So many things happens, we haven't found a horse bone, we haven't found an elephant bone, we haven't found a broken chariot, broken gun, whatever, broken bow, arrows, nothing. That happened 500 years ago. We are comfortable with that, but we demand, show me the Shastra before I accept Ramayana, Mahabharat. That happened 7,000 years ago or 14,000 years ago. Now, great question by the way, I'm not asking you. We have to almost learn who has the burden of proof. Like, for example, in my talks I say, again Rama, Krishna on one side, on the other side, take Panini, our favorite here, Panini, okay, Kalidas, everyone believes Kalidas happened, okay, Kalidas, Jesus Christ, whether you believe it or not, whether he exists or not, Alexander, and just keep on adding names, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, I'm putting these 6-7 guys here, that happened in the last 2,500 years, versus Krishna and Rama 7,000 and 14,000 years ago. Let me ask you a question. What archaeology evidence exists for these folks that they truly existed? Besides like in some book, just like Ramayana and Mahabharat it is written. Anyone? What archaeology evidence exists for these folks? 0 archaeology exists for these folks. Now based on that, I'm not saying Kalidas was not there or Alexander was not there. I don't know. If I have to trust the what is written in book, I will accept it. Otherwise, I have to fight. And people say, why you not believe or something. So, pramana tashyartha pratipatte, which also means we can only talk of the evidence that we have. We cannot talk of the evidence that we don't have. One example I was giving before we started, in a Indus Valley Saraswati civilization, it so happens we see lot of seals of a bull, like a cow and a bull, but we don't see even a single seal of a cow. Are we going to conclude, oh yeah, bulls existed, cows did not exist? We are not going to do that. We can only talk of the evidence we have and therefore we draw the inference. If the bull exists, cow must exist. Like that. So the other everything, the 4-tusked elephants are there. The trident is there. 600 evidence takes me to certain date and I could have shown you many more things. They exist. Shastra I have not found, but I have not found. Pramana anupapatti upapatibhyam. The thing that I have not found is not useful to prove anything, to disprove anything. I just move on. Or if you are very much interested, then saprayojana sandigdha. You have to take that as a subject, spend 30 years like me with no guarantee of success, whether you will find it or not. You decide what you want to do. So whatever evidence we have, we work with it. Vimana. Quick on the Vimana and maybe we can stop depending on the timing. We haven't found an engine. Jain Narlikar, the scientist, he says, now I will tell you how faulty logic works. And then I will bring it to the Nehru Planetarium also. Jain Narlikar, astrophysicist, he has made this statement many times. In the newspaper it comes, get repeated. He says, I have not found the fuselage of what exactly you are asking, of a Pushpak Viman. Therefore, I don't accept that Ramayana happened. This is a logical fallacy, Hitva Bhasa. And we say, yeah, I think he's right, because we are not paying attention. We have not learned how to notice the fallacy. Just fast forward to 400 years ago, Shivaji Maharaj, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, everybody knows, he had a Bhavani Talwar. And if you read that, like, you might have heard that Bhavani Talwar was given as a prasad, gift by goddess Bhavani to Shivaji Maharaj. Now, what is the proof that goddess Bhavani gave Talwar to Shivaji Maharaj? Vinoba Bhave has very humorously said once, like somebody asked him the same question, Bhavani Talwar, did goddess Bhavani give it to Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji? He said, that I don't know, but I know it was made in Portugal. That time, our technology or the access that Shivaji Maharaj had to was not so much good. Eventually, he built it. But that time, he used to buy much of the weaponry from Portuguese in Rajapur. So, even that was also very much well cast for Shivaji Maharaj. The point is, we just go do the deity worship, we do the prasad, we do the namaskar, puja, and we might take it as a prasad. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe that's how it was taken. There can be 10 different explanations of how Goddess Bhavani gave a talwar to Shivaji Maharaj. But just because I cannot show the proof, on that account, the existence of Shivaji is not in a question. It's the same thing. Just because I cannot show the fuselage of a Pushpak Viman, therefore Ramayana did not happen. What kind of nonsense is that? But we hear somebody is a scientist, PhD from Cambridge, and we say, oh, no, let's not say anything. No, we have to say it's utterly nonsense, it's foolishness. Because it is. Our Nyaya Darshana teaches us to expose the foolishness. We should say it, and we should say it on the camera. It's very important. Okay? But if you read Valmiki Ramayana, if you make that samshaya as a samshaya of a buddhi and not a mind like he did, do you know what happens? If you look at how many of you have flown on an aeroplane? Taken an aeroplane travel? Okay. The others have to take it on a Shraddha. Okay. So now what Valmiki Ramayana says, now do the comparison. When Pushpak Viman used to take off, it used to make a big noise. Is that true of modern jets? Very much so. Okay. The air currents used to make Pushpak unstable. What do we call that? Turbulence. Turbulence. You will see no description of Pushpak Viman landing just in front of Saraswati Nilaya. It always landed outside the city. Even when he came to snatch Sita Devi, he is outside, then he gets on a chariot, then he comes, he leaves the chariot, then he walks to the Parnakuti. So it is not somewhere that it will land anywhere. It is landed at Nandigram. It is landed outside Bharadwaja's ashram. So it's a very realistic descriptions of it. And I would give you homework to read rest of it. They have a Vyomachar, the people who drive, just on a humorous note, they are not like ordinary looking. They have special goggles kind of thing. Vyomachar, they are called Vyomachar, who fly the Pushpak. Okay, there is also like the Devi, Devi of the Pushpak spoke. Do we have Devis on the current aeroplanes? Yeah. And when it spoke, it was not seen. Many times the lady who speaks, we don't see her. She's somewhere in the corner unless you happen to sit at the right spot. This is a humorous note, but my point is 4 or 5 different descriptions of a Pushpak Viman given in Valmiki Ramayana 14,000 years ago, just by coincidence maybe, but they perfectly match with what we today know of a plane. At least that should raise my thing, maybe there was something like this. And they are not saying this in some surprise. Now we feel surprised. Oh, aeroplane, how does it fly? How many of you know how it flies, by the way? How does it matter? I feel confident, right? No, it's a Bernoulli principle. Those of you have heard about it, right? That's how it flies. But we don't know that. If you read a modern novel and it says, the Vinci Code or something, Dan Brown, it says, the Professor Langford took a flight from Boston, 6 o'clock in the morning, he was walking in London. Now that book doesn't say which flight he took and how the aeroplane flew. But we don't demand, of course that's just a novel, but we don't demand, no, please explain. Was it a Dreamliner 787 or something? No, it's not relevant to the story. Whatever was relevant was given by Valmiki. Alright? We need to stop. Any other questions if you have a time, otherwise we can stop. 3 questions, so that's good. Huh? Hari Om. Was it useful? Fun? Okay.
हरिओम, थैंक यू सो मच नीलेश जी इस सुंदर व्याख्यान के लिए। और पहले मैं कुछ भी कृतज्ञता व्यक्त करूं उससे पहले बताऊंगी कि वाई यू आर सो स्पेशल एंड people for people like me actually. So I was in 6th or 7th standard and there was a chapter on Sant Tulsidas and it was written in such a way that I really doubted that there was a Sri Ram as like Sri Ram God. And I asked my mother that is he like a Kalpana of the Kavi? And she had no answer. Of course she said no, Ramji was there. And I was like yes, okay. But the question was there and first it was a Sanshaya of Buddhi and then it became some Sanshaya of Manas and I got indifferent about it with the time. But somewhere the doubt remained, it lingered. And not before 4-5 years ago only, my life turned me to, explore this side of the Bharat. And then I found the videos of Nileshji and other heroes who are working towards the civilizational revival. So then I got some idea, okay, we should do our research this side, we should focus now. And then the videos I watched was also about dating and I did not understand it fully. But yes, I could see that there is a window of inquiry which should be taken. And what appealed me was this scientific approach that you also showed today. So many evidences from so many fields, and they are aligning into one, focusing on one point, and they are proving it actually. So maybe we will not understand it fully, but we cannot deny it also. And that is the main point, to keep the inquiry on. And so yes, we are grateful for a person like me that, yeah, you firmly stated that the dates and the Ramayan happened, the Mahabharat happened. So it is like a evidence that yes, there was a Sri Ram, there was a Sri Krishna. And that is needed because, okay, we are here, we are lucky enough to be in the satsang of Swamiji's and Guruji, and but not everybody gets the chance. So people like you only can show that, side to the youth of today. As Gurudev said that youth are not useless, but they are used less. And that is because their questions are not answered. And then they become indifferent about it. So because of the researches that you are taking up, the questions are being answered and so many people are getting interested. So we are so thankful, and thank you so much for coming today and giving us this beautiful presentation and so many answers you answered for us. Thank you so much. Hari Om.